Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, my dear learners. This is MD Saiful Islam, an assistant teacher of Oriental High School of Bangladesh, and you are most welcome in my Saiful English Academy. My dear learners, hope that you are very fine by the grace of which you are and watched my previous classes smartly as well as you are connected with me. My dear learners, with the reference of my previous classes, today's class have been present in front of you with our new arrangement, new class named changing sentence from simple to complex to compound. So, my dear learners, now like to take a look at the board and try to understand. My dear learners, in my previous classes, you were told various kinds of rule of changing sentence from simple to complex to compound, such as rule number one, rule number two, rule number three, rule number four, rule number five, rule number six, rule number seven, rule number eight, and with the reference of my previous classes, today's class have been present in front of you. Rule number nine. Rule number nine. In rule number nine, I'm trying to show you about relationship among them. That means infinitive is equal to so that is equal to and so my dear learners, now I take a look at the board and try to understand. You'll have to mind that my dear learners, infinitive is used in a simple sentence, so that is used in a complex sentence, and so is used compound sentence. Of course, you know that words infinitive infinitive. My dear learners, you'll have to mind that my dear learners, 2 plus v1. 2 plus v1 is called infinitive, and it's not a finite verb, it's of course a non-finite verb, and it's used in a phrase. It's used in a phrase. Hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, with the reference of these connections or relationships, I have written an example in the board. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. We eat right to live oil. My dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. This sentence has two portions. One portion, we eat rice. It's of course the principal clause, and another verb, to infinitive. That means it's a phrase. Hope that you have understood clearly. And according to the definition of a simple sentence, of course, it's a simple sentence because you talked about the definition of a simple sentence in my previous class. Is that, my dear learners, a simple sentence is a type of sentence which has at least a principal clause. Sometimes it may have phrases or not. So, according to this definition, it's of course a simple sentence. Now, major learner, suppose you are told to change such kinds of statement into a complex sentence. So, major learners, what steps should I take to change this categories of sentence into a complex sentence? Before changing, you'll have to mind that, my dear learners, there are two clauses, that means a principal clause and a subordinate clause in a complex sentence. And already we can see that a principal clause has in this sentence. So, my dear learners, you'll have to change the phrase into a subordinate clause. So, my dear learners, what's the precondition of a subordinate clause? Of course, you know that what the precondition or prerequisites of a subordinate clause. My dear learners, the prerequisite of a subordinate clause is that, my dear learners, at first you'll have to use subordinating conjunction, then subject, then finite verb, then extension. So, my dear learners, keeping the principal clause unsensible, you'll have to change the phrase into a subordinate clause. So, my dear learners, try to solve right at first principal clause. We eat rice. Okay, my dear learners, and according to the relationship among the, my dear learners, in this case, you'll have to use so that as a subordinate clause, middle of the statement. So, that then subject of course you know that there is no subject in a phrase, so you'll have to bring the first subject again. Subject of principal clause, of course, oi, so write oi. Then in this sketch you'll have to use medial nuts as a finite verb can or could, may or might. You'll have to mind that if we inform a verb is used the principal clause, you'll have to use may, can or may. So write can or may, can or may. Then write verb from the finite verb from the phrase live, then extension oil. Hope that you have understood clearly. Magellan, it's already we have gotten two clause. First clause, which was principal clause, and second clause, so that we can or may leave oil. It's up to the subordinate clause. Okay, Magellan, it's hope that you have understood clearly. Magellan, it's now suppose you are told to change this kinds of statement into a compound sentence. Confirmed sentence. So, my dear learners, what steps should I track in this Zoya? My dear learners, you'll have to mind that, my dear learners, there are two principal clauses in a compound sentence joined together by coordinating conjunction. Okay, my dear learners, already we can see that, my dear learners, there is a principal clause in this statement, but the phrase must change into a principal clause. But this principal clause you'll have to write fast. But the time of to form the principal clause from this phrase, you'll have to mind that in this sketch you'll have to write at first subject. Hence, there is one subject of the phrase. So you'll have to use the first subject of principal clause and subject of principal clause. Of course, we of the chair. You have understood value. Then subject. Then you'll have to use want, wants, oblique, wanted as a verb, and in this sketch we'll have to use verb want. Hence, V1 form of verb is used in a principal clause, and you'll have to mind that if V1 form of verb is used in the principal clause, you'll have to use want, but if of the third person, you'll have to use wants. And if V2 form of verb is used in the principal clause, you'll have to use wanted. Hope that you have understood clearly. To live oil. Okay. Already this phrase must be changed into a principal clause. And now, middle of the statement, you'll have to use so, and so. And to then write the first principal clause. I eat right. I eat right. Take a look at the board and try to understand. So already this sentence must be changed into a compound sentence because this sentence has two principal clause. We want to leave oil. Another principal clause which rise, which is joined together by coordinating conjunction, and so the total form of the statement is that we want to leave oil and so which right. Hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, now I'm trying to write another example to make you understand oil. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. We go to school to learn. Again, let's take a look at the board and try to understand. This sentence has two factors. First, but we go to school is of course a principal clause, and another for to learn, of course, a phrase. And suppose you are told to change the statement into a complex sentence. So, my dear, what steps should you check? major learners, you have to mind that keeping the principal clause and symbol sensible, you have to change the phrase into a subordinate clause. Then the simple sentence must be changed into a complex sentence. So, major learners, try to write yourselves. I go to school. In this case, you'll have to use subordinate conjunction so that middle of the statement. Then to write subject I, then write can or may, then write finite verb from the phrase learn. Hope that you have understood clearly. Already, this simple sentence must be changed into a complex sentence because we can see that this sentence has two clauses. One principal clause, we go to school, another part so that we can or may learn. It's, of course, subordinate clause. My dear learners, suppose you are trying to turn the statement into a compound sentence. So, my dear learners, what steps should you take to change such categories of sentence into a compound sentence? You have to mind that, my dear learners. Of course, you know there are two principal clause in a compound sentence. In a principal clause and joined together coordinating conjunction. Already we can see that, my dear learners, there is a principal clause has, and in this case you'll have to form the principal clause from the phrase. So, my dear learners, but you'll have to write this principal clause at first beginning of the statement. So, my dear learners, try to change compound. At first subject, write subject I, then can or may, then verb, finite verb from the phrase learn, then write and so middle of the statement, then write the first principal clause. I go to school. Already, this sentence must be changed into a compound sentence because there are two principal clauses in this sentence. One principal clause we can learn, and another principal clause we go to school, which is joined together by coordinate conjunction and so. Hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, now trying to show you another example. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. We go to school so that we can learn. My dear learners, first try to identify what categories of sentence. It's of course a complex sentence because this sentence has a principal clause and a subordinate clause. And suppose you are told to change this sentence into a simple sentence. So, my dear learners, what steps should you take? My dear learners, you'll have to mind that to change the sense of statement into simple sentence, you'll have to keep the principal clause unsensible. So, write I go to school, and you'll have to form a phrase from the subordinate clause. And in this case, to form a phrase, you'll have to delete subordinate conjunction, subject, can, may, could, might. But instead of this word, you'll have to use infinitive true. Infinitive true, then write verb, learn. So that's enough, Midgelinus, for that you have understood clearly. And now, suppose you are told to change the statement into a compound sentence. So, my dear listeners, what steps should you take? You'll have to mind that, my dear learners, at the time of changing such kinds of statement into a compound sentence, you'll have to keep unchangeable the principal clause, and you'll have to change, you'll have to form a principal clause from the subordinating conjunction. But in this case, you'll have to write such kinds of principal clause at first, beginning of the statement. So, my dear learners, start to write. We can. So, sorry, in this case, you'll have to mind that, my dear learners, if the subordinate clause has can, in this case, you'll have to use want or wants. But if the clause has could or might, you'll have to want it. Okay, my dear learners, of that you have understood clearly. One, then show, then write verb land. Middle of the statement you'll have to use and. So then write past principal clause. I go to school. That you have understood clearly, and we can see that already this sentence must be changed into a compound sentence because this sentence has two principal clauses, which is joined together by coordinating conjunction. Of that you have understood clearly. I'm trying to show you another example, my children. After take a look at the board and try to understand. Rohim wanted to get a job, and so he went to Dhaka. This sentence has two principal clauses and joined together by coordinate conjunction and so. So, my dear learners, we can consider this statement into a compound sentence. So suppose you are told to change this statement into a simple sentence. So, my dear learners, what steps should you take? My dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. So, in this case, you will have to write second principal clause at first. Rohim went to Dhaka. Then you'll have to use infinitive and first principal clause. You'll have to form a phrase from the first principal clause. And to form a phrase from the principal clause, you'll have to delete your subject, once, wanted, show, and then write verb of this principal clause. Get a job. Of that you have understood clearly. Already this sentence has changed into a simple sentence because this sentence has one principal clause and a phrase. Of that you have understood clearly. Suppose, my dear learners, say you are told to change this statement into a complex sentence. So, my dear learners, what steps should you take? In this case, you'll have to write the first principal clause. First principal clause. The first principal clause of this statement is that, my dear learners, Rohim owing to Dhaka. But my dear learners, you'll have to form a subordinate clause from the principal clause, and to form coordinate subordinate clause, you'll have to use at first subordinate conjunction that, then subject, then can, may, might, could. In this case, you'll have to use could or might. Could, then verb, get, extension, a job. And already this sentence, we can see that, my dear learners, this sentence has changed into a complex sentence because this sentence has two clauses. Rahim went to Dhaka principal clause so that he could get a job. It's a subordinate clause. Hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, I don't want to learn into this class, but I want to share some information with you, my dear learners. How about that you are very fine and you are connected and will be connected with me to watch my various kinds of video classes. So, my dear learners, though I'm a Bangladeshi guy, but I'm trying to use English. Conversation at the time of making my various kinds of video classes. So, my dear learners, if you notice any parts or mistakes in the midst of my mind, please excuse me and refer to all my channels so that I can help you through my video classes throughout my life. So, my dear learners, no more today. I'm just again with the new version and the new class. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.